Some teens are just straight out of a horror movie. With that in mind, here's our list of the top 10 horrifying teen inmates that will send shivers down your spine. Number 10. Royce Casey. 15-year-old Elise Paller's body was discovered near her home in Agaro Grande, California in March 1996. She'd been taken advantage of and had her life ended there 8 months earlier by acquaintances Jacob Delschmutt, Joseph Filora, and Royce Casey. The perpetrators apparently returned to her corpse and took advantage of it on several occasions. The body was located after Royce confessed to the crime following a conversion to Christianity. All three eventually pleaded no contest to her death and are now imprisoned and serving life imprisonment. The trio lured Elise from her home with the stated intention of ending her life as part of a satanic ritual, although the crime bears many of the hallmarks of similar sexually motivated deaths. In their defense, the defendants said they needed to commit a sacrifice to the devil to get their heavy metal band, hatred, the craziness to go professional. Royce was then denied parole by Governor Gavin Newsom in July 2021. Joseph has a parole hearing tentatively scheduled for July 2023 after voluntarily waiving his right to a hearing for 1 year, and Jacob has a parole hearing in which is scheduled for December 2024. Number 9. Vincent Parker. Vincent Parker was accused of ending the lives of both his parents and pleaded not guilty in court. Vincent first attacked his mother by dousing her with pepper spray, stabbing her in the eye, and beating her with a baseball bat and crowbar until she stopped breathing. When his father got home afterwards, Vincent attacked his father with a crowbar and stabbed him several times. The reason he committed the crime, he explained, was that he'd gotten angry over routine punishments. "I just remember getting mad," he told investigators. "It's all from my dad, all this stuff like my dad taking away my iPod and stuff." Vincent pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree homicide in adult court, and his sentence will come soon. His family members were all puzzled over the situation because he has no criminal record and he's an honor roll student. Number 8. Stephen Miles. Stephen Miles stabbed his girlfriend Elizabeth Thomas to death before cutting up her body with saws in his bedroom. He was arrested at the scene in Amy Road, Oxted, Surrey on January 24th. The teenager told his family that a voice in his head named Ed told him to end someone's life. He used tools from his father's tree business to cut up his girlfriend's body before wrapping her dismembered limbs and placing them in bin bags. When Stephen's sister returned to the family's flat about an hour after the death, he told her, "Ed made me do something bad." Psychiatric experts told the court Ed was likely a manifestation of anxiety rather than schizophrenia, as Stephen had some narcissistic personality traits and showed signs of being on the autism spectrum. The court was told Stephen had a fascination with horror movies and had wanted to copy the actions of Dexter, the main character in the American TV series. Judge Christopher Critchlow said, "This is a case of the utmost gravity, the horrific features which are rarely heard in any court. Nothing this court can say or do, no sentence this court can impose can alleviate the pain suffered by Elizabeth Thomas's family for a death in such a terrible manner. There must be a life sentence." He was then given a life sentence and told he must serve at least 25 years before being considered for release. Number 7. Peter Woodcock. Peter Woodcock took people's lives, took advantage of people, and was diagnosed as a psychopath. He gained notoriety for the deaths of 3 young people in Toronto in the late 1950s, as well for a homicide in 1991 on his first day of unsupervised release from the psychiatric institution in which he had been incarcerated for his earlier crimes. An adopted child, Peter lived in numerous foster homes as an infant and showed signs of severe emotional trauma when he found a permanent foster home at the age of 3. Unable to adjust to his social situations, he was bullied by his peers, and he would often wander from his home by foot, bicycle, or train to parts of Toronto, where he would then take advantage of the young and end the lives of 3. Found not guilty by reason of insanity for his crimes, he was sent to a psychiatric facility. Psychiatrists placed him in experimental treatment programs for psychopathy, but those treatments proved ineffective when he ended the life of a fellow psychiatric patient in 1991. Number 6. Sharon Louise Carr. Sharon Louise Carr, also known as the Devil's Daughter, is a British woman who Britain's youngest female convicted of homicide. In June 1992, she ended the life of 18-year-old Katie Ratcliffe after picking her at random as she walked home from a nightclub in Camberley. The death initially went unsolved until June 1994, when Sharon attacked and stabbed another pupil at Collingwood College Comprehensive School for no apparent reason, and then reportedly boasted about the death of Katie to friends and family and and in her diary entries made in prison. She was convicted of the homicide in 1997, which attracted a lot of media interest due to her young age and the brutality of the death. She was ordered to serve at least 14 years imprisonment, but remains in prison long after this minimum sentence expired due to her disruptive behavior in prison. A restricted status prisoner, she has continued to regularly attack and attempt to end the lives of staff members and fellow inmates, and has regularly expressed her desire to hurt others. Number 5. Santre Gale. Santre Gale, thought to be Britain's youngest contract, has been jailed for life for shooting a young mother dead just for £200. Santre was told he must serve at least 20 years behind bars for the death of Gulistan Sabasi. CCTV footage showed him resting a weapon on the front gate of the flat where she was staying and blasting her in the chest while she was on the doorstep. Santre was convicted of the homicide after boasting about the crime to another youth. Judge Stephen Kramer told Santre it was an efficient, ruthless, and calculated execution. He added that his youth and immaturity were factors in the crime, but he added anyone seeing the short but telling CCTV clip of the shooting cannot be struck by the chillingly deliberate and cold-blooded way in which you went about your business. He was jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 years. Number 4. Ricky Kasso. Ricky Kasso, also known as the Acid King, ended the life of his 17-year-old friend Gary Lowers in Northport, New York on June 19, 1984. Two other teens, Jimmy Trono and Albert Quinones, were present at the death, which took place in the woods while all four were under the influence of an illegal substance. At some point during the night, a situation escalated into violence. Ricky scuffled with Gary, bit him on the neck, and stabbed him in the chest. He continued his attack on Gary, and the two other boys helped hold Gary down. During the attack, Ricky allegedly commanded Gary to say you love Satan, and Gary is said to have instead replied by saying, I love my mother, before finally giving in to Ricky's demands. After the attack, the three boys covered Gary's body with leaves and small branches and left it in the woods. The death then became sensational news in New York City and across the nation due to the alleged torment of Gary and supposed occult aspects of the death. The death took place during a period known as the Satanic Panic, when there was a much public concern over the effects of satanic and occult content in heavy metal music and role-playing games. Ricky was wearing an AC/DC t-shirt at the time of his arrest and was a fan of groups such as Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, and Ozzy Osbourne, which fueled the panic more. Number 3. Lori-Ann Thrope. Lori-Ann Thrope is a British woman who is Britain's youngest female convicted of double homicide. Over the space of 9 days in August 2009, she tormented and ended the lives of two people. The first was Rosalind Hunt. She was kicked, punched, and stamped on by Lorraine, and she also used cheese graters, dog-led chains, and salt to torment her. After days of this, Rosalind was still alive and was eventually beaten to death. The next victim was her own father, Desmond Thrope, in order to silence him from implicating her in the first homicide to police. Lorraine smothered her disabled father with a cushion before kicking him as he lay prone on the floor. She later admitted to police that they would find her trainer prints on his head. She came to national attention upon her conviction in 2010, when it was noted that she was so young at the time of the crimes. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum sentence of 14 years imprisonment. She remains imprisoned at HM Prison Foston Hall, but is eligible for parole in the summer of 2023, so watch out. Number 2. Ben Moynihan. Ben Moynihan stabbed 3 women as revenge for being unable to lose his virginity. Due to this, he had been sentenced to 21 years in prison for attempted homicide. Ben, who called himself the unhappy geezer, left letters to police confessing to his crimes in the run-up to his arrest. In one, left on a police van, he taunted officers for not apprehending him and wrote, "All women needs to die, and hopefully next time I can gouge their eyeballs out." In another, he wrote, "Every time I stab someone, I run home, and I like to smell the flesh I ripped out." He concluded the letter by telling police to come and arrest him before he hurt anyone else. He also included a photograph of himself at the bottom of the letters. Now, the teenager stabbed 3 women aged 20, 45, and 67 with a 4.5-inch kitchen knife, aiming for their hearts as they walked alone in Portsmouth. In a video found on his laptop, Ben filmed himself describing his frustration at being unable to lose his virginity, saying, "I think every girl is a type of slut. They are fussy with men nowadays. They do not give boys like us a chance. I am still a virgin. Everyone is losing it before me. That's why you are my chosen target. I just can't live in this flat. I have no future here. So women, tell me how we should do this." He kept a diary detailing the attacks and violent dreams he had of hurting and ending the lives of women. As well, and he is truly disturbed, and I hope he's getting the help he clearly needs. And coming in at number 1 is Michael Bargo. Just over 10 years ago, Seth Jackson, who was a teenager who lived in Bellevue, Florida, had his life ended by 5 others conspiring in his death. The death was part of a horrible escalation between Seth, Amber Wright, and Michael Bargo, which stemmed from Seth and Amber dating and ending in a terrible way. Seth and Amber were always together, but their relationship didn't last, and after the pair broke up in March 2011, it quickly turned into a social media feud and then a real-life feud. One night, Amber would lure Seth to her female friend Charlie Eiler's home and would be jumped and have his life ended. There, Seth was tormented, shot several times, and kneecapped. Once Seth died, his body was put in a fire pit and burned. The following day, Michael and a friend went to the quarry to put Seth's remains into paint buckets and threw them into the water with cinder blocks weighing them down. The other 2 friends and Amber cleaned up the house of blood using bleach, though evidence of the crime still remained and was later found. The death was particularly shocking for several reasons: the sheer brutality of the death and because of the age of Seth and his assailants. In June 2012, all the defendants were sentenced to life in prison for Seth's death. Michael, though, was considered the ringleader and was sentenced to death as an instigator of the homicide, becoming Florida's youngest inmate on death row, and in 2021, the Supreme Court upheld its stance. Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 horrifying teen inmates that will send shivers down your spine. Who in our list scared you the most? Let us know in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time.